Hi guys, hope everyone's doing well. Hope you all have had a great week. All right, so if you've ever been curious as to what happens if your renter gets into an accident and the car ends up being totaled while it was out on a rental on Turo, here it goes. Here's what happens. Okay, so if you guys have been following along, then you know that the end of my 2019 was wild because I had two cars get totaled just 2 weeks apart from each other. So I finally have a resolution on my Polaris Slingshot that was totaled. I believe it was towards the end of November. So here's what happens. So in this case, the renters had the car for about a week. They were up in LA, and in the middle of their rental, they had an incident. I still till this day don't know exactly what happened, but it seems like they were probably just driving recklessly. I get a text message from my renter around, I don't know, it's probably like 9 o'clock at night. And the text message was so funny because, and I quote, the renter said, "Hey, do you think you can give me a call? The most bizarre thing happened. We were driving through a residential neighborhood and the back wheel to the Polaris Slingshot just fell off out of nowhere. It really scared us." And I was like, oh, wow, okay. I've had Polarises for years now, so I know that wheels don't just fall off, and definitely something must have happened. And long story short, the only information that I could gather from the tow truck guy was that he said where they were located looks like they had just come around a corner and they probably came around really fast and ended up hitting something, which ended up knocking the wheel off, something along the lines of that. And then when I actually had the Polaris towed, so I had the renters go ahead and call Turo Emergency Roadside Assistance. They set up the tow. They had the car towed to my local shop here. I went that night actually right as the tow truck driver came to take a look at it. You can definitely tell from the undercarriage of the car that they hit something because there was a lot of residue from cement. And then also the back wheel, if you felt the texture of it, you can feel how burnt it was because they were aggressively driving that car. I will post a video to sort of my first look of the Polaris when it got to the shop at the end of this. So anyways, so you move on with Turo, you file the claim. And when it's usually a large claim like this, they outsource it to a third-party claims company, I guess, called DMA, and DMA takes over. I've always had a pretty good experience with DMA. Everything's pretty simple and straightforward. There's really not much for you as a host to do. Basically, they'll tell you if they need anything from you, but they just take it from there. They'll deal with the insurance and getting the estimate when the damage is to that extent, and they'll deal with the renters. So in this case, when I first posted this video, somebody commented and said that it takes about 6 weeks, and whoever that was, thank you so much, because you were right on the money with that figure, because I just got the resolution last week. So that brought us up to right about 6 weeks for the whole thing to take place. Now, it depends on how you have your car in terms of... Sorry guys, I don't know what happened to my mouth. Sorry, this iPhone 11 Max or whatever is so heavy. Okay, so it depends on what your ownership of the car is. If you have it financed, if you own it outright, or if you have it leased or whatever, that does play a role in what the next steps are. For me in this case, I had this car financed, and thank God I did a really good job at buying this car, which is a whole nother topic that we can discuss. So they basically contacted me, sent me some paperwork in the mail. I believe it was a power of attorney, and they were requesting the lien holder information so that they could get in touch with them directly. And basically I signed the paperwork, I sent it over to them. Oh, I'm sorry, before that, what they do is a valuation of the car, and they'll send you a message and let you know that, hey, this is what we valued it on, and they give you a very comprehensive and detailed report and to show you what they base it off of. And then if you accept the valuation, then they move forward with sending you all the paperwork. You sign it all, send it back to them. And basically in the case like mine, if the car is financed, then they will deal directly with the lien holder. They will send the lien holder the payment. Now in my case, luckily I did a good job at buying the car, so they actually valued the car higher than what I owed on it, which is nice for me because once the the lien holder gets settled out and the loan is closed, any excess amount that was left, they will mail a check out to me. So I'll get a decent sized check for the Polaris, which will, sort of help me make up for the loss that I had. So that's basically what happens. Now, if there is a scenario where the valuation that they are providing doesn't match up to your loan, I would imagine that you are liable for that loan, which brings me to my most important point. If you are financing vehicles to put them on Turo, you have to really make sure that you understand what you're doing, because your car can really get totaled at any time. Obviously, it's incredibly rare. I've been doing this for 5 years, and that was the first time that ever happened. And actually, the damage wasn't that bad, but it's just the damage was more expensive than the value of the car. So you really have to understand loan to value when you are financing a car. You have to anticipate what the depreciation is going to be based on how frequently you think you're going to be renting it, how many miles you're going to be allotting per day per trip, and how often you anticipate that car to be out. So it really takes a lot of research to understand how your car is going to be performing and sort of what your expectations are for the car. Once you understand all of that, then you go into a car looking for a certain deal, right? You're usually looking for X amount of percentage off of the MSRP to sort of make up for that depreciation. And that's kind of what I talk about a lot. And the advice that I give to people is that when you are getting into these cars, if you're financing them and even leasing them, you have to really clearly know what your exit strategy is, because you don't want to get stuck in a situation where you end up with all that depreciation and the negative equity, and you're going to be held liable, and then it would have just not all been worth it. So I will have a series of videos that will go over car buying, whether it's financing or leasing, and I'll chime in a little bit on auctions and so forth as far as my knowledge goes and from what I've heard from other hosts. But that is basically how my Polaris Slingshot panned out. It took about 6 weeks. The settlement got paid out to my lien holder. Now I'm just waiting for a check from my lien holder, so I'll put a little bit of money in my pocket, because luckily I did a good job at buying the car at a great deal. So that is, I guess, the takeaway for this video, is that if you are financing these vehicles, really please focus on what is your exit strategy, what happens, what position is your loan to value in case something like this happens, based on what the depreciation is and how many miles are being put on the car. So those are all key points to think about, and I will dive deeper into all of these elements. And let's just call next week car buying week for Turo or whatever, and I'll break down the different ways of buying cars and share all the knowledge that I have in terms of financing cars, leasing cars, and the factors that you should pay attention to if you're using those means to get cars to put on the platform. All right, guys, that is all for me. And as always, thanks for watching. Leave me your questions and comments. And if you guys get a chance, please do subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. 10,000 subscribers, so that I can get access to YouTube stories, which would only allow me to share more with you guys of the day-to-day life of a Turo host. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.